Joe, don't bother with how bad the room looks like. If I just shove everything in and come up today, Monday was even better.
Is that it? Are we good? That was Julia this Sunday? Thank you very, very much. Thank you. Last Sunday, I wittingly made a comment that I thought the bell needed to be greased or it was really cold because it sounded kind of weak, and it turned out to be Laura ringing the bell for the first time. But this Sunday was Miss Julia with a ringing, an appropriate Christmas pause, and one last ring. Merry Christmas, everyone, and welcome to worship this Sunday morning. I appreciate you all taking the time to be here today. For those of you that messaged me this morning and said that you would be joining us from your homes, Merry Christmas to all of you as well. I hope that you are having a wonderful and incredible morning, and that you have an awesome rest of the day with your families, as well as everybody gathered in this sanctuary this morning. We'll do things just a little bit differently today, and differently in the sense of I changed some of my sermon notes this morning, and I'm going to share with you a story that I love, and I'll explain that to you. We'll also have communion on Christmas morning. So for those of you that are at home, if you want to join in communion with us, you can do that from the comfort of your couches, kitchens, beds. I don't know where you are, but you can join us as well. Mr. and Mrs. Hildebrand last night were joining us from their homes, and I told Warren this morning, he had sent me a photo of them sitting wherever you were sitting with the TV on, and you had your communion stuff ready, and he said, we're joining you from home. Merry Christmas. So however you're doing it, we'll join in together today with communion as well. A few announcements I'd like to share with you this morning. I want to offer prayers of support and healing for Hilda Donner, who's home now and trying to make that transition, as well as Connie Eldridge. Roger is, dealing with some things that comes with taking care of someone who comes back home after a stroke. So we remember both of them this particular Sunday. I want to also offer prayers for Kathy and Mike Duncan, both now at Slarbron. I don't know if that'll be a permanent location for both of them, but they're both there. Their rooms are right next to one another, so we'll see how that progresses in the next few weeks. Prayers for me and Justin and Matthew. Tomorrow morning, we'll load up in a vehicle around 5:30, and we'll start to make a trek back to Norfolk, Nebraska, to see Galen, my stepfather, who's now at a facility which is going to become his permanent home. Fountain Point is the name of that facility, and so Justin and Matthew both have some time off this week, so it allows us a chance to be able to go up and to do that, and to have multiple drivers, and one person just doesn't have to do all the driving. Plan to make it a short trip. I don't know if we will come back, start driving back on Tuesday and just drive through the night or not, but I'll be back here either early Wednesday morning, 1, 2 o'clock, or somewhere in the early afternoon on Wednesday. So I appreciate your prayers for safe travels. Last two prayer concerns that I want to mention this morning are one for Teresa stumbles. I don't know if she's watching us online. She is a Christmas birthday girl, and so she's celebrating a birthday today. And there's, I was trying to make it dramatic. I was going to try to prevent and act like I couldn't remember. Mr. Terry, you want to come up here and just take this whole thing over? Nancy Lewis is a birthday girl today as well. And so, Nancy, we celebrate with you and Teresa on this Christmas day, your birthdays. I hope you get more than one gift today. Don't let them get off just with a Christmas gift. You got Christmas and birthday both. Happy birthday to you. Anything else, Terry? We good? Okay. All right. Couple other announcements I want to share with you this morning. One is concerning the senior fitness classes, which have been going better than I thought they would on the startup. We won't meet this week because I'm going to be gone. So we'll start back after the new year. So I believe that is January 2nd, January 3rd, so Tuesdays and Thursdays. And I want to bring attention to this. I sent a message out to a lot of people in our GroupMe app, which is an app that we use to communicate with Sunday school teachers and all of our youth as well. But there's also information that I put on our Facebook page, and the sign-up sheet that we have in the foyer is intended for people of all ages to participate in this opportunity, which I think has the potential to be something that is going to be beneficial for many of us, not only us participating, but also to the community. I learned about this organization. I asked Erin to help me get in touch with the organization because I shared it with her, and they got back with Erin quicker than they got back with me, and then they weren't getting back with Erin, and then they got back with me, and I asked if we could set up an opportunity to work with them. Here's what they do. It's not a mortuary. The whole sleep in heavenly peace, it's like, what are we doing? Moving caskets? No. They make bed frames. And so 2 Saturdays out of the month, the address is North Green River Road, and it's on the sign-up sheet out in the foyer. From 8 to noon, they gather together with a group of volunteers, and they put together wooden bed frames. And those bed frames get delivered to families that they've identified within our community that don't have beds. So these beds go to a lot of children, but these beds also go to adults who would otherwise be sleeping on a floor. It doesn't require a lot of time. It doesn't require a full day. And all ages are welcome. So dads, sons, daughters, grandfathers with the grandchildren could come and participate in an opportunity like this. The only catch about the age is that children who are under the age of 12, for liability reasons, just can't use any of the power tools. That doesn't mean they can't help hold something, they can't help move pieces of wood, all of those types of things. If you have any questions about this, I know I'm kind of pushing it harder than I do a lot of stuff, and we usually kind of click through announcements, but I just think it has a chance to meet a whole bunch of needs for our community and provides opportunities for us to participate actively in something that we see the results of immediately. So please consider. To all of you who gave all of these beautiful poinsettias, if you did donate them and would like them at the end of our service today, please come up and pick them up. These are all of the names of people that gave poinsettias this year, and the people that gave fund donations and where those fund donations went to. I know it's a little bit small, but we tried to fit everything on there the best we could. There are some paper sheets out in the foyer if you want something to look at a little bit more closely. So with that being said, I want to thank you all once again for making the quick turnaround, for all of the choir members who will sing for us today. A lot of them came in pajamas. They're a real lazy group. I don't know what's going on. But they are going to have a photo afterwards. And if you would be willing to stick around, we'd like to do a big photo with everybody afterwards. if you're wearing your pajamas and all that good stuff. So thank you, choir, for being here and for all that you did last night, for all the special music, and for all the work that went into that, your direction, you over there tickling the ivories and all that good stuff. We appreciate you making sure everything went as well as it could. They are going to sing for us also this morning. And so I would invite you to wake up your neighbor and to make your way up front, and we'll join together in our opening, which is a song that will be shared by our church choir, Holy is the Newborn Child. Good job. Nicely done. Love it. Thank you so much for being here with us and singing with us. I'd invite us to stand this morning if you would like to. We'll join together in an opening prayer together as a gathered group and then sing Joy to the World. The prayer that has been chosen for today reads this way. Please pray with me. Exalted God, even as the heavenly host sang of your glory in the night skies over Bethlehem, even as the stars shone in the heavens and sheep and cattle gathered in the light, so we gather, young and old, together to recount all that you have done for us in mercy and steadfast love. With all creation, we praise you and exalt your name forever and ever. Amen. Let's sing together. Children who are here, please come forward. Everybody else, you can be seated if you'd like. See if we have enough. I think we'll have just enough to do everything we need to do. You're coming up, big fella? Look at you. Where's that ugly sweater you had on last night? Huh? Yeah, not today?
Not today.
You going to be an offering guy for me?
Sure.
All right. Can you help me? Let's do it. You be one. Anybody else want to help with this? Can you help with this? I bet you can when we get done. You want to do it? There's an ornament for me? Well, thank you very much. Hope, peace, love, and joy. Nicely done. I love it. For those of you that weren't here with us last night, he was my associate pastor, but I think I am going to promote him to senior pastor. And he helped me with a lot of things last night. You're even helping today. Today is a really special day in the life of the church. It's almost equal to another real special day in the life of the church. What day do you think that other great big holiday is in the church? Can you remember? It happens in about 4 months. There are eggs involved sometimes. There's a tomb and a cross. What holiday would that be, do you think? Easter. Yeah, Easter. Christmas is one of those great big holidays in the church in which we celebrate something really, really important. Because if it didn't happen, it might be very different in what we are doing as far as coming to church. If we were to think about Christmas Day and Jesus being born, what do you think the most important thing about that event is? What are some of your thoughts on Jesus being born? Why do you think that's important? What do you think? You want a ball? Okay. Yep. Jesus wanted gifts too. He wanted gifts. He didn't maybe get the gifts he hoped for being a baby, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. I'm not sure if those are on his list, but that's at least some of the gifts that were brought, like you wanting a ball. That's right. What else is important about being born? You get to become something, right? You get to become whatever you dream of being. Some of you might dream of being doctors. Some of you might dream of being race car drivers. Some of you might dream of being electricians. Some of you might dream of being nurses. Some of you might dream of being teachers. But none of that would happen unless you were born. You being born is one of the most important things that's happened to the world, like Jesus being born. It's so important that you make a positive difference in the world like Jesus did, and we can use him as an example. I hope you will do that in all the things you dream of doing. In your offerings today, I want you, when you hand your trays to people down the aisle, I want you to say something to them. Can you do that for me? I want you to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, okay? And say that the church only takes $100 bills, okay? And they can't make change. Don't let anybody make change in the offering plate or anything. I'm just kidding. Wish everybody a very Merry Christmas. And then what I want you to do, when you're done with that, if you would like, before you leave, I have some of these. These are different colored because we like things being a little bit different sometimes. These candy canes are for you. However, there's a whole bunch more in here. It's a candy cane. And I'm going to put them down here, and I want you to either take another one for yourself, or I want you to take some for other people and share it, okay? All right? While they come out and take our offering, we're going to sing together Away in a Manger. And so I invite us to do the best we can with that. And let's come and take our offering. I want to read today from Isaiah. And I want to read this from Isaiah today because I feel like it helps us begin that transition to move forward. Even though we go backward with Isaiah to where we are on Christmas Day, it speaks of something that we are now to become that they hoped would come when Isaiah was writing and speaking. These are the words written in Isaiah, the 9th chapter, verses 2 through 7a. It reads this way. The people who walk in darkness will see a great light. For those who live in a land of deep darkness, a light will shine. You will enlarge the nation of Israel, and its people will rejoice. They will rejoice before you as people rejoice at the harvest, and like warriors dividing the plunder. For you will break the yoke of their slavery and lift the heavy burden from their shoulders. You will break the oppressor's rod, just as you did when you destroyed the army at Midian. The boots of the warrior and the uniforms bloodstained by war will all be burned. They will be fuel for the fire. For a child is born to us, a son is given to us, and the government will not rest on his shoulders, and he will be called what? Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. His government and its peace will never end. That reading is the basis for our reflections today. There are very few things, I believe, in life, for those of you that have experienced it personally, and for those of you that have experienced it through grandchildren, or great-grandchildren, stepchildren, more joyful than the birth of a baby. Those are magical, incredible moments. Those giggles, those squirms, those crying things that don't bother you so much when they're first born. About 6 months in, when they're crying in the middle of the night, you're kind of like, oh my gosh, what did we get ourselves into? But having children is one of those things that can enrich us in so many ways. And if you haven't had children, you, I am sure, have had some moment in your life when you have been enriched by children around you. Today, the story that we are celebrating involves Mary and Joseph and a child and something that they didn't envision happening. And these new parents might have felt like they bit off a little bit more than they could chew. For some new parents in today's world, when new ones are born, there may be text messages that get sent. There may be photos on Facebook and Instagram. There may have been newborn photographs that have been shared at the hospital, on the hospital websites. But in the case of Jesus' birth, it's announced by an angel who came to her and explained that everything is going to be okay. I can't imagine that those words were enough, but she trusted them. Yet today's a new day. Today, the words from Isaiah provides the richness that's appropriate for a coming Savior. Today, Isaiah speaks of this child as being mighty. Today, Isaiah speaks of this child as being more than we could have imagined. A wonderful counselor. Something that will bring about changes that we might not have even thought of. An everlasting Father, an everlasting presence, something that will be with us for all times and in all places. But also, someone and something that brings peace. It provides for us the opportunity to think about the next steps for us. What happens after Christmas? What happens after all of the decorations come down? What happens when we get ourselves into the new year? This moment is just a semicolon. It's not the end of the sentence. It's not the end of the moment. It's not the end of where we're going. And so I want to share with you one of my favorite stories. It's the story of a gentleman by the name of James Lundeen. And James Lundeen was a young man who lived through some hard times, and I'm going to share that with you this morning. And the story is about how Christmas has some sort of spiritual magic to it. Mighty Counselor, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. things that we might not have been able to imagine, but they happened. James Lundeen was the son of a mail carrier named Mel Lundeen. Mel delivered the mail every afternoon at the Lundeens at 1:22:30 p.m., Monday through Saturday. He came down the road to the Lundeens in an old green Chevy, steering from the passenger side. And if you've ever seen mail carriers do this, when I was younger, I used to think it was an amazing feat in itself. He would come down the road, he'd put the mail in the mailbox, and then he'd be on his way. And then one day he didn't come. And we found out later that he'd been in an accident. Mel was at one of his cousin's house to help shingle the barn. And at some point in the day, someone shouted, "Look!" And he looked, and he didn't see anything. But then he finally noticed what everyone was looking at, and he saw a giant hot air balloon coming across the sky. And while he was looking up at that hot air balloon, he lost his balance. And when he hit the ground, his body and his head just made an incredible crack. And everyone thought that he had died. The Lundeens lived on the north side of town, right near the lake. Mel and Clarice lived there with their 8 children, lived in a little greenhouse. Bunk beds everywhere in the house. One day, on the day of Mel's accident, everyone was normal in that house. Children playing, normal day. Clarice was getting ready to put a casserole in the oven. And the phone rang. And when the phone rang, the children all knew that something was different. They knew something was different by the sound of her voice. Her voice at that moment seemed to change, and it was just strong. And Clarice's voice wasn't always like that. She was a bag of nerves trying to tend to 8 children, and who wouldn't be? Those 8 children didn't always have mercy on her. They knew that she was the nervous type, and they were ready to go out by the lake. They'd say things like, "Mom, do you know where the life jackets are? We're going out to the lake." And then they'd say, "Oh, don't worry, we'll be okay." And Clarice would say, wait, don't go to the lake. And they would say things like, "Mom, there's a raccoon under the porch. We're going to get it out and catch it, and we're going to cook it for dinner." And Clarice would thrown into a tizzy. But today when she answered the phone, just as she was getting the casserole out of the oven for dinner, her voice was completely strong, and everyone knew that something was wrong. Something happened. She listened. And then she hung up the phone and she said to the kids, "Your dad's fallen. I'm going to go see him. He's been hurt. I'm going to leave you here, and I'll call you when I can." She put on her coat, went next door to borrow the car from the neighbors, and she took off. And the children were just sitting there at the table with their casserole that had just come out of the oven, and they didn't know what to do. They didn't know if they should eat. They didn't know what to think. They didn't know what to feel. All they knew was that their dad had fallen, and they didn't know what would happen after that. Well, he didn't die. The accident happened in late November. He was in the hospital for about 4 weeks. They thought he would be there until sometime mid-December, and while he was in the hospital, Clarice started talking to the children, taking them aside one by one. And she told them, not just one time, but several times, there might not be much this year for Christmas. I don't want you to get your hopes up. We might not be able to afford much of a Christmas this year. It's just the way it is. We'll do the best we can. But don't get your hopes up. Well, little children really don't understand that completely. They don't understand that Christmas was something you afforded. They just thought that Christmas happened. Gifts showed up, and it was Christmas. And then she told them that there might not be enough money for Christmas. And James's face just burned. His hopes were so high for this Christmas that he didn't know if he'd be able to recover if his wishes weren't fulfilled. See, for about 6 months, James had been dropping hints and campaigning for a Lionel model train set. A Lionel model train set with the entire layout that was seen in the Ward's catalog the year before. It was an entire layout, the engine with 15 cars, a caboose, switches, a big oval track, and a station. It had a little livestock loader that when the train stopped by the loader, a little conveyor would begin to move and the livestock would come up the conveyor and get loaded onto the train, and they'd go into a cattle car, and that door would close, and the train would take off down the tracks. It was the best gift that any child could ever hope for, and James just couldn't imagine not getting that gift for Christmas. It was hard for the family. And about mid-December, James began to panic. He began to believe that Christmas was really not going to be the Christmas he'd hoped for. He began to wonder and hope that a really rich person would read about his dad's accident in the paper, and maybe that rich person would think that they would want to give the Lundeen children the best Christmas that they would ever have, all kinds of toys, which included a Lionel model train set with the entire layout. He even thought that he might write a letter to the paper, just in case there was a rich person out there that wanted to buy a Lionel model train set for very deserving children at Christmas. And the letter would let that person know exactly how they could provide that. But he didn't. It's a hard time. Clarice was gone a lot to the hospital. The kids stayed home a lot by themselves. Clarice's sister would take care of them sometimes, but there were 8 of them. Friends and relatives would come from time to time to visit. They'd bring some food, but you get tired of that pretty quick. One night, James heard one of his sisters crying, and James went to her and asked what was wrong, even though he knew what was wrong. And through the tears, she finally calmed down a bit, and she said this: "Dad isn't ever coming back, and we're all going to be adopted." James thought about that a bit. You see, James had thought about being adopted by a rich family that had an entire Lionel model train set in the basement, one that had all the cars and the loaders and the engines. But the idea of Dad not coming back home started to scare him. What if it really happened? It was getting close to Christmas, and they were at church one Sunday. And he saw a shoebox in the church, and on that shoebox it said, "Lundeen Family Christmas." And he was ashamed. He was so ashamed that when everyone was downstairs after church having coffee, he went back upstairs and he took the box. He was embarrassed. Mel came home. Came home about 2 days before Christmas. He was a bit pale, lost some weight, got dizzy when he stood up, was on the couch quite a bit, but he was home. And there was a little Christmas tree, one that you sit up on top of a coffee table. Not a big one, but a tree nonetheless. And there were some gifts. He got a new pair of boots, got a hunting knife, got a combination chess and checker set. And like he expected, he didn't get the Lionel model train set, but Mel, his dad, was able to hand out the Christmas gifts himself. Everyone knew that Dad was home. And that made for a pretty good Christmas. And after everything was over, all the paper picked up off the floor, all the glitter mostly vacuumed up, even though they knew next Christmas there would still be glitter they would be finding. The house was put back in order. James decided to go out for a walk. So he put on his new boots and he set out across the lake. It'd been really, really cold in northern Minnesota the past couple days, and it had snowed several inches. And it'd been really windy like it was here over the last few days. Windy enough that it created drifts of snow over the lake, so it looked like waves in the moonlight. And he walked across those drifts to the other side of the lake, and he was just walking, and he was thinking, and he was thinking, and he was walking, and he was considering everything that had happened. And when he got all the way to the other side of the lake, and he turned back, and he looked at home, and he looked back across the lake, and across what appeared to be waves on that lake, he could see his little house on the other side. And he could see little green lights in that house. And just beyond that house, he could see the rest of his town. All the little houses with their little lights. He could see little street lights, little Christmas trees people had decorated in their front yards. And as he saw this, he felt like he was standing right in the middle of a Lionel model train set. And as he looked at this perfect setting, he realized that that's what Christmas was all about. Right there in his little greenhouse with their little green Christmas tree, with their little lights, that's where Christmas really was. And his family was what Christmas really was all about. As long as all of them were together in that little house, that would be all the Christmas that they would ever need. I hope that for your Christmas. I do. And that this semicolon that represents the next step, the next move, and the next moment is something that helps us think about Jesus as more than a baby. More than just a child that was born in a manger all of those generations ago, but was a person that was born and did some incredible, awesome things with their lives that influenced us and influenced people generations after that birth. Because that's our next step. This will all come down. We might not get a Lionel model train set. We might not get our favorite or our most hoped for Christmas gift. But when we step back and we put it all into perspective, we just might find that when we look over what we have, it's about as perfect as it could be. It's about as wonderful as it can be. So as you celebrate the rest of your Christmas day today, whatever you do me one favor. Just one. Give somebody that you love and somebody that loves you a hug. If you don't have somebody to hug you, I haven't thought that far through on this one. Get a hug before you leave today. Give Nancy Lewis a hug before you leave today if she'll take one. It's her birthday. Hug your dad. Hug your mom. And if you don't have a father, if you don't have a mother, hug your sister, hug your brother, Hug whoever it is that you are the closest to in that moment. And try to make it as perfect as possible. Because in the midst of what we are about to do here, this represents a next step. This represents a next moment. This represents your next choices. Because this bread, even though it represents life, it also represents a life that was broken and a life that was challenged. But it also represents a life that was strong, and it represents a life that was faithful. And it compels us to do the same. And even though this wine represents a life-giving blood, it also represents a new beginning and a new chapter. And so as you take it and you drink it today, think about the places that God is taking you into your next chapter. In honor of the newborn Christ this day and all that that life turned out to be, we share in this sacred gathering as people who seek to do the same. Dear gracious Lord, we ask your blessings upon this gathering today and upon these sacraments. Help them to nourish our body in such a way that we can see beyond the obvious in front of us, the literal in front of us, and to look just a little bit deeper. To look beyond the train set and see the house. To look beyond the house and see the people. Within those places and within those moments, fill our hearts today with hope, peace, love, and joy, offered to each of us in so many unique and special ways. Amen. Please come. The body of Christ broken for you, take and eat, remembering him. The blood of Jesus Christ shed for you, take and drink, remembering him. To close our gathering today, we're going to sing a couple hymns that are favorites of many congregations, O Little Town of Bethlehem, and then we'll end with Go Tell It on the Mountain. I would invite you to stand if you would like, and we'll join together in those hymns. But before we sing, please stand. We'll share together in the Lord's Prayer. Would you please pray with me? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. O little town. To all of you that are gathered here in this sanctuary today, I want you to be incredibly safe when you go outside. It is 18 degrees, okay? So be careful when you go out there. It isn't going to feel really cold. It could be a shock to your system. Whatever you do today, wherever you are, at home, in the sanctuary, far away, close by, I want to wish you all personally an incredible, awesome Merry Christmas. For those of you that will only be here for a short time and you'll be returning back to your homes, make that visit count. Make the best of it. Have the best time that you can. Take all those moments in, capture them, keep them in your hearts. Our worship here this morning at Zion Lippe United Church of Christ has ended. Let our service now begin. Amen. Good job.